Hello, it's Amy with Just a Little Ink. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And now in my 24th year. And I'm excited to bring you today just a really simple card. It's more of a layout idea, but it's using the Sweet Bugs bundle. I'm going to go ahead and get my demonstration camera going. It's also using the Stylish Shapes dies. I use these quite a little bit. I'm excited that they are continuing on in our next catalog, our May to August catalog. We're going to be now 3 catalogs a year and no minis anymore. This is the Sweet Bugs stamp set and die set. So I keep mine in Stampin' Storage magnet cards, and the opposite side can have your stamps stuck to it, which I really like. But the opposite is magnet, of course, and I can keep all of the coordinating dies on this side, and they fit because they've come up with stuff for the inside. I do not get anything at this point anyway for promoting this, so just so you're aware of that, I don't earn anything for that, but just so you know kind of how I keep mine. I do find that they're an easy way to store, and it's a nice sturdy way to keep everything in one pocket versus having 2 separate ones. But I'm going to go ahead and get going here and show you kind of what it is beyond the stamp set that I'm going to be using. And so this will be using just a few small pieces of the Cute as a Bug Designer Series paper. You get 6 pieces, well, 12 pieces, 6 different designs to each of those 6. This is one side. Aren't they the most adorable papers? Hard to even want to cut them up. Some cute toadstools, pretty pattern. We're using these these second to last. And then of course another set here. And then if you flip them over, you notice that there's a lot of different options. And I know this has not been new. This is out of our mini catalog, our January through April mini. And so it's been around a little while. And so it's not necessarily new. And I know there are a lot of ideas out there, but I'm going to share with you just a really simple card idea. So what you're going to want for the basics, you need a card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. I'm using Old Olive. You're going to want a quarter piece, just a little shy of that, 4 inches by 5 1/4 for a layer on the front. You're then going to want a piece that I believe is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8 to layer on the very beginning. And then you're going to need some scrap pieces, one for some elements that we're going to stamp. And then you need a circle. These are, again, from those Stylish Shapes circles. A white, basic white, which is what these 2 pieces are. This one is from the second to the largest. Then I cut just a couple pieces of the Designer Series paper. This is the same size, and then one that's just one size smaller of those leaves, just for a little bit of layering. And then you're going to need a scrap piece, and I'm choosing the layer piece of Cajun Craze, which is what this is, for a little bit of heat embossing. So, and then of course for the inside, because this is a dark color, 4 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white for the inside. So those are the basics that you're going to want. I'm going to go ahead and kind of set this aside. I'm also going to be using some of the adhesive backed metallic gems for a little bit of accents. I'll get them kind of out of the way. And all of that said, you're going to want your blending brushes, and let's see what else you might want. But definitely want your blending brushes, your heat tool, a couple of those other things. So I'm going to go ahead, then I'll show you one idea that I did previously. And if you're on my Facebook page, you may have seen the card I will show at the end, because this idea came from that layout. So I'm going to grab from my stamp set here quickly. I'm going to grab just that ladybug stamp. So just a couple elements we're going to go ahead and get ready for. So I want that ladybug on, it's reading a book, and then I want the Lily of the Valley stamp. So I'm gonna stamp that. And I'm wanting the little grass with the, put on my smaller stamps here. I want the grass. Okay, and then we'll set this aside. Okay, so on my scrap piece for now, I'm going to use Memento ink. If you are seeing our brand new catalog, you know that we are doing away with carrying Memento and StazOn, and we're going to be having a new basic black hybrid ink that will do both of those things. It does stain your photopolymer stamps. It does not affect how they stamp. They do clean really well. I will clean my stamps after a bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab some more. And so just so you're aware that we are coming out with a brand new ink for both watercoloring and using our Stampin' blends. Okay, so then we'll set that aside. Looks like that's pretty juicy. I just inked my my Memento pad just recently. So, and then we'll keep this out for another moment. So I'm going to show you just really quick kind of how I colored. So I'm going to start with the light Poppy Parade to color my ladybug's shell. And I've started doing this a little more. If you've seen my videos before, you know I had always started with the dark first. And I'm kind of liking starting with a light, and then I'm going to come back in with the dark, because all of our Stampin' blends come to a light and a dark for every color we carry. And then that just kind of allows it to blend a little more, and then I can always come back in and with the light and spread out and keep building and building and building. I'm going to then grab my dark smoky slate because I don't want the basic black. The basic black I find is so dark that you can't see the ladybug's face. And so that's why I am not choosing to use basic black. So I'm just going to use the dark of the smoky slate blend and just swirl it around. And I think I forgot to bring what color I was going to use, so we'll just use the Old Olive. I'm going to put the spine just a little darker on the book. And then I'll come in with a light and just give the pages a different color. So I don't want it to hide. He's happy reading his book, so like so. Then I can come in, I'm going to, whoops, got out of it and then I didn't want to. I'm going to color my Lily of the Valley leaves. Again, in the Old Olive, I'm going to come with a light. It's pretty quick coloring on all of this, which I like. So then I'm going to grab the dark and just put just a little bit. What happens when you already have the light in there, the dark kind of already bleeds a little bit into, which makes it kind of nice. Then I'm going to use some of our cloud cover because I don't want my flowers to be blue, but I want them to stand out. So I'm just coming right down the middle and then coming and giving just a shade. I don't know if you can see that very well. We'll try to get it a little higher up there. So it's just a little bit to pop it out. I don't want it too much. And then what I did is I took our color lifter and just gave it a little bit of wash in the middle, which will kind of spread that color. And then the final thing I had done was I took our Winkostella, because these are flowers and I wanted them to kind of have just a bit of a shimmer. So that was my final step with those. And then I would line up my coordinating dies. I won't do them all here. I would line up Well, it helps if I have the right one. Line up my die onto here, run it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine for both images, and then the magic of television, so to speak. I've already done that, and so I have those two pieces here. So what I want to get ready for is I want to put a little bit of blending on my white circle. And so for that, I am going to grab my Old Olive and my Daffodil Delight. And you'll note my Daffodil Delight is a really old firm foam stamp pad, but it still is the same color, still works really well, and so I've not changed it. I'm going to come across here, and I'm just going to come in the center. I want just a little bit of a sunshiny feel on the top half of my circle. This is a great way with basic white to kind of get your own colors. And so I'm going to give it two shades all in one without having just one piece or using designer series papers. Just like that, set that aside. Then I'm going to grab my Old Olive ink. This is again the newer of our firm foam pads. And like so, grab a little bit of ink, and then I'm going to just lightly come in at the base because I want my lower section of that to be the green. Okay. It kind of blends up in the middle. If I had been using my blotter pad there, which I chose not to do, then I would not be inking up my table because I don't want it to transfer to other things. Just grab one of my wipes here and make sure that we're cleaned up. Okay, so we'll set that out of the way. It'll dry here in just a moment. Okay, and before it does, and so it doesn't get everywhere else, I'm just going to go ahead and set my blotter that I should have there to begin with. Okay, I want to kind of get an idea of where I'm sticking these little fellas. And so I'm going to lay them here because I want to stamp those flowers. And so I'm going to grab, actually I want to grab Memento. Okay. Now that I kind of have an idea of where I'm putting things. Okay. All right, I want to come, and I want that to be about there. And then, yeah, I think that'll work out really well. Okay. So then I can grab my blends again, and I'm just going to grab and get a little darker section for the grass. This is the darker of the Old Olive blends, and then I'm going to grab the Petal Pink just to give a little more of a flower color to the flower instead of it being green. Okay, and then I can start gluing stuff down. I have got my fine tip that I've put Memento or multi-purpose liquid glue into. I used it here for a little bit, so we'll see if it comes out, and if it doesn't, which I'm thinking it may not, I need to get a pin and stick into there. So we'll just go ahead and use the multi-purpose liquid glue the way I had it. Just can't over squeeze. That's your biggest thing when you're using multi-purpose liquid glue. You want to make sure you aren't squeezing the base of your bottle too hard, because if you do, you end up with a big mess. So a little dab will do it. And I'm going to grab and put my Lily of the Valley where it's in the grass. on my circle. And then I want to do the same thing. I want to grab just enough glue on the back of my ladybug. Like so. And I think I know just the person I want to mail this to. So I'd like to know in the comments if you were to make a card, whether it's this exact one or something using the same layout, who would you send it to? So now that I have that, I want to do one more thing. I want to heat emboss the Love You Lots greeting that's in this stamp set. So I'm going to grab my block. I need the long skinny block. And because I'm going to heat emboss, I want to use an emboss buddy to take off any fingerprint oils, because you never know what all you get onto your cardstock, and it'll hold little dots of embossing powder. So I want to get that ready. And then I'm going to use my Versamark ink to stamp on my strip. This is just, I think it's about a 3/8 of an inch piece of Cajun Craze cardstock. Let's see how we did. Actually, not too bad. And then, again, I'll clean that after a while. I have some of our more basics embossing powder, our WOW embossing powders. I've got the opaque bright white. And I'm going to sprinkle that on here. Ooh. I'm going to tap it. It's just a poor way of doing embossing powder, and for me it just seems to work really well. So then I can just have a scrap piece of paper. I can tap that off, and it just is easier for me to clean. So then I need to heat it, which I will do quickly. Hopefully it's not too loud for you. There we go. I just like the way that that white stands off from the Cajun Craze background. So, and what I found was it was just easier to do that and then trim it to the section I want versus having it exact and then trying to stamp onto it. So I'm going to grab my glue again. I could use my, oh, isn't that a pretty, that would have been pretty too. A little bit of a tablecloth look. I'm going to put this circle here, and I liked how I had the, turn that over. I liked how I had the stump and this mushroom showing on the one side. So put that down first. I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on the back side here. Oh, you know what? That's kind of pretty too, though. I might change my mind. I kind of like that side. How well does it look? You know what? Because it's not stitched the same way on one side, I'm not going to use it. So think ahead, because that would have been really pretty. All right, so I'm going to grab over here. So it's just a couple of those circles on the background, like so. Then I'm going to go ahead and layer it onto my base. Again, just putting a bead of multi-purpose liquid glue, which has been my kind of go-to. I do still have Stampin' Seal. Really is a great all-purpose adhesive. But if you don't want to deal with the tape runner, the multi-purpose liquid glue is a great option. Okay, so I'm going to put that down, make sure I push and wiggle just right so that everything is lined up the way I want. You have just a little bit of wiggle room for that. Okay, then I'm going to stick some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of the piece I already did. put those, about 3 of them will do it. You could do a whole lot more if you wanted. I know some people use a whole lot more dimensionals. I don't tend to use as many. So I'm going to layer my accent circle. I kind of want it, I think I'll put this down just a little lower. Make sure I'm straight. And then how's my greeting going to come into there? So I need it to move over just a little more. All right. Sometimes it's a finagling, even if you're doing the exact same card. I do want a little bit of dimensionals onto, let's see if I have another set of them. Yes, I do. So I want the minis. They're just easier for me to deal with for these small shapes. And I'll use, again, a few of them here. You could cut down the full-sized ones. If you've been stamping very long, you know that. Okay, out of the way. And you know what? I'm going to pull this one off. And in its place, I'm going to put a little multi-purpose liquid glue because I think I want that to stick just along the edge. And if I have dimensionals, it's going to stick up too much. So like so. Then I'm going to go ahead and fold over the front of my card base. Use my bone folder to get a nice crisp fold. And again, use some adhesive on this side, whichever your favorite is. Okay, line it up on the front of my card. Slide it to make it line up. Okay. And then, like I said, if I didn't hide them, I'm going to add a couple of my gems. And I think I'm going to use the copper. It's kind of like those. So I love my take your pick tool for that. I'm going to grab just a couple of them here. Let's put here, kind of keeping with that circle theme a little bit. And then I'm going to grab just one over here. Like so. And make sure to stamp something for your inside. I'll keep it here so I can decide what else I want to say. But that is my finished Sweet Bugs stamp set and card. So this nice layout. This was the one I shared on my Facebook page a couple weeks ago using, oh my goodness, now I'm not going to remember the name of the stamp set. Has been super, super popular in our online exclusives. And I think it's been, the bundle has been out of stock because of those dies. So fun. I will put a link of which one this is in my Facebook or on my description here of this video. But fun set, same layout. So you can see how you could come up with so many different ideas for all of this. So I want to thank you for popping in. I hope it hasn't taken too long. Hope I've inspired you. If you've not already decided to subscribe to my channel, I would so appreciate it. Please like, share, and comment. I love to hear what you have to say. And until next time, happy stamping.